Hi, morning everybody. Stella, we will start back playing just now. Forgive the sweatiness and thing. I was doing some work in the yard. I need anybody who's on and seeing it to be able to tell me whether or not they're hearing me clearly. I'm hoping that you guys are hearing me clearly. Well, all right. So I want to jump into this real quick. By now, I think, if not the entire country, most of the country is aware that several members of the Hadid family have been detained, and they've been detained. And the story this morning from Anna Ramdas is about an assassination plot. So there are a couple of things I want to say. There is no part of me that thought that I would have to come here and say anything at all based on the stuff that I've heard. But since Wednesday, forgive the noise, the dog's in the background playing as well. And again, if one person on the live can tell me if they're hearing me clearly, so that way I don't have to repeat myself when I actually start speaking. Just give me a little thumbs up or something, or a little message in the chat window. Stella, ease me up now. Oh God. Yeah. So, couple dots to connect. One, this alleged assassination plot has absolutely nothing to do with national security issues and everything to do with land, a land transaction, a transaction involving state lands, right? I know that we as a society tend to stigmatize, stereotype the Syrian Lebanese community as being a community of drug dealers and money traffickers and money launderers and traffickers and all of those things. But we also need to bear in mind that most members of the Syrian Lebanese community are business people, and they are business people that do a lot of business that benefits the state, right? That redounds to the benefit of the state and redounds to the benefit of the national economy. So, years and years and years ago, we would have had sugar estates here. One of the sugar estates would have been the Golden Grove Estate. And the Golden Grove Estate runs along the highway in Trin City. Most of you know the estate. And most of you would know that the lands there would have been lands that I think at a point in time, Clico owned and had assets for. And it was part of the Clico assets. So the side that has the entire Trin City development, that was under HCL, because HCL did the development there. And then the other side also belonged to Clico. And eventually a French company by the name of Pernod Ricard bought, or acquired, I should say, the lands there under a lease, because it's still state lands, right? Acquired the lands there, and they had a big aniseed farm, right? And so they had a lot of these aniseed trees growing there, and the aniseed was being used to infuse their wines, etc., 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 because that's what Pernod Ricard does, right? Wines. Then that their ownership or acquisition of the land changed hands, and it went from the Pernod Ricard company to Blue Waters. Now, the lands would have started off as agricultural lands, and eventually Blue Waters company would have begun to change the status of the land from agricultural to industrial, because of course there's a whole manufacturing company right there, and that company of course hires tons and tons of employees. So Blue Waters has the lands. They have a lease to the lands. I have no idea what's the length of the lease. Those are things that I'd have to research and eventually find out. But they have the lease for the lands. And the problem is, over the years, they've been gradually, so I don't want to say that this is the problem. Over the years, they've been gradually changing the classification of the lands. And in changing the classification of the lands, they've been going through the process with WASA and whoever else, because of course they have to run water, they have to run electricity to be able to turn the agricultural spaces into industrial spaces. So the state has to give permission for all of these things. And those permissions have happened in cycles and in periods over the years for bits and pieces of the land. So it's part by part. So let's say, and I'm just using these figures hypothetically, let's say they have 10,000 acres of land, and I don't think it's 10,000 acres, but let's say they have 10,000 acres of land, they would have been able to convert, let me say 2,000 acres, then another 1,000 acres, then another 1,000 acres. And they've been doing that bit by bit under different administrations. So this isn't a new thing. This isn't a now thing. This is something that they've been doing for quite some time. And lo and behold, under this current administration, there's been a rescinding of the lease. I'm told that the sitting government wants to rescind the lease that they have. They also want to reconvert some of the reclassified land. So land that went from being agricultural to being industrial, they want to change back the classification of the land, and they want to take away the lease from Blue Waters. Now, the Blue Waters Company could easily challenge these decisions in a court of law, and that could tie up the entire that could tie up the land. It could tie up changing over the lease of the land from Blue Waters to whoever else. And I'm told that there is a party financier of the sitting government who wants those lands. And so it now brings us to the current detention. So Wednesday, when the country got up to the news of the 7 o'clock raiding of the Hadid's household in Westmoreland and the Blue Waters Company buildings and offices in Trin City, by the end of the day, I was told a couple of things. I was told that the detention order basically stated that there was a conspiracy to murder. And so my question was, conspiracy to murder whom? And my source then said that what they are claiming is that the family that has been detained was conspiring to murder the Prime Minister. I didn't want to come out and say that Wednesday evening or Thursday morning because I didn't want to jump my sources on them. So the Anna Ramdas story this morning would have indicated to you, right, that there's a plot to assassinate Kamla Prasad-Bissessar. I just want to point out a couple of things here that people may or may not be saying. The chief person that they're using as a witness to this plot to conspire to murder or to assassinate is someone who is actually mentally disabled or mentally unwell, right? And the TTP is not coming out and letting you know that. And they're also not coming out and saying that what they are what they're building their case on is anger and resentment or frustration over the challenges that the state has been putting up, the sitting government, has been putting up with respect to the Pernod Ricard lands. And I'm referring to them as the Pernod Ricard lands, but in truth and in fact, they now fall under the Blue Waters Company, right? I just say in Pernod Ricard because in my head, that's how I've always referred to the lands. So this is not about drug trafficking, even though the state would want you to believe that. This is not about money laundering. This is not about any actual evidence of criminal activity. The basis of the detention is an alleged plot to conspire to murder the sitting Prime Minister, and it is based on a conversation that the TTPS claims someone has recounted to them, wherein anger and frustration over that particular bit of land transaction was taking place. So it would have been, I guess, a tense, frustrated conversation. And I don't know who told who to tell who to tell who to tell who. And then all of a sudden, somebody's aunt, who was actually housed in a facility, has now become the key witness in this entire thing, and that is couched around a potential conspiracy to murder charge. So it remains to be seen whether or not the TTPS has gathered enough information to be able to establish that there is an actual conspiracy, and it remains to be seen whether their witnesses are reliable enough witnesses, and it remains to be seen whether or not there was an actual legitimate threat to the sitting Prime Minister. I'm also going to point out to you all that 15 years ago we dealt up with this. In 2011, there was a whole alleged assassination plot to kill the Prime Minister. Y'all remember that? And they locked down the country from August to December. And the 17 men that they locked up for that plot, after the state of emergency was done, the state had inadequate information, inadequate evidence, and so they had to release everybody. So what you also need to understand is this. If the Hadids are indeed detained for the duration of this entire, whatever is the length of the state of emergency, and there are no grounds on which to hold them, they get released. But what happens in between then is their company gets damaged to a significant extent. And this is a company that would be responsible for GDP, foreign exchange, trade regionally and in other parts of the hemisphere, and the jobs and livelihoods of its entire staff. And now I want to extrapolate. That's Dominic Hadid and his wife and their company. If you look at the revocation of the visas of about 29 to 30 members that I'm told of thus far within that community, you are also looking at the crippling of the ability of persons, business people within that sector to be able to successfully and reasonably conduct the trade and business affairs of their companies locally and internationally. So revoking visas, detaining business people, challenging leases, all of these things add up to the destabilization of a business sector. Now, if you want to think that destabilizing that business sector is going to only impact on the members of that community, then you, my friend, are living in a bubble, because it means that you don't understand that every single business community in this country is part of our wider ecosystem. So this means an impact on the economy. It means an impact on our forex earning abilities. It means an impact on people's jobs and livelihoods. It means an impact on trade. So serious questions have to be asked about this detention and other detentions, because the same way, if there is a situation where the TTPS is abusing its power in this particular instant, trust and believe, most if not all of the other detentions that have happened under the last 3 or 4 states of emergency from July 2025 to now, trust and believe, there are hundreds of other people who have been detained, and the TTPS is abusing its power and abusing the use of detention orders. Right? Let me go back to playing football and cleaning the yard and sweating down the place a little bit. You all have an enjoyable Sunday. Bye. Why is this thing not finishing?